present the findings of the workshop. Um, just in terms of a brief introduction, um, it's part of a feasibility study. You'll hear a lot more about it throughout the day that we've been conducting over the past 6 months. And we've been going through the islands and meeting with various experts in the field to get an appreciation, understanding of the interest in this area. And today we'd like to present our findings. So my task here this morning is to welcome you all and to welcome our distinguished delegates who some have traveled from afar. We have with us the Honorable Minister, Mr. Medford Nicholas from Barbuda. Mr. Nicholas, with us. We also have from St. Lucia here, represented from the OECS, Ephraim, who is a project director for the Sustainable Energy Program. We have with us also Ms. Steffi Alfred, Trade Investment Officer with the British High Commission. We have with us also from the government of St. Lucia, Mr. Fabian Lewis, who is from the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ports, Energy and Industry. I think he stepped outside to make some calls, so he'll probably be with us in a short while. Right. So I think to get the ball rolling, what I'd like to do is to invite Ms. Monique Bolemin, who is the Director of EKWA, to offer some remarks and to welcome the rest of you. And from there, we'll go on to hear some more presentations from some of the key experts who've been working in this field to share with us some of the information that we've been able to gather.
Project for the development of renewable energy, marine in tidal and wave energy in the Eastern Caribbean region. I'm very happy to be here in St. Lucia and to present you with our preliminary conclusions and recommendations to develop renewable energy marine infrastructure in the Eastern Caribbean region on an inclusive basis and using, based on international cooperation between the different Caribbean territories. So I would like to introduce the Mr. Medford Nicholas, who is the Minister of Energy of Antigua and Barbuda, and honor our presence, his presence to this workshop. So, Minister Nicholas, would you like to make an introduction, please? Thank you.
Good morning, all. Pleasant sunny Caribbean morning to everyone. I'd like to first start by saying to the St. Lucians in the house, it's a pleasure to be back home. It may sound funny that I'm saying that given that I'm Minister of State in Antigua, but in my formative years as a business executive, I did work with telecommunications in this region and happened to have spent quite a bit of time in the mid-2000 era here in St. Lucia, right in this very location. When I worked with Cape and Wireless, so it's a place that has many pleasant memories for me. So it's nice to be back here in St. Lucia. A little bit about myself. I am, as I've just indicated, I am one of those persons who have come to public life having spent quite a bit of time in the private sector. And I do pride myself as bringing that perspective and that whole approach to public affairs. Leveraging a lot of my private sector experience. I was first elected to Parliament in June of 2014, and have been a minister of government since. At the last general elections in Antigua in early this year, in January of this year, I was asked by the Prime Minister to accept additional responsibilities for public utilities and energy. Since that time, over the last 6 months, I have had a meteoric lift on the learning curve and in terms of understanding the lay of the land regarding renewable energy. Of course, being a member of the cabinet for that long, I have been aware of several commitments that the government of Antigua has made internationally with respect to our commitment towards reducing our carbon footprint. And ultimately, there are some national commitments that would require us to move away from the fossil fuel, our fossil fuel dependency in the energy sector. So in that respect, I am standing here now twice against the deed, just to channel a bit of Shakespeare. The idea being that as the Minister of Public Utilities, which has a mandate for providing electricity on island, and as well as Minister of Energy, that I will also have policy directions, give policy directions to the type of things that we're doing, gives me that dual perspective. I would say that during the later part of the program, I will go into some more details. I just really wanted to keep it open from the beginning. But during the course of our deliberations today, I will share with you some of the progress that we have made in Antigua and why this discussion that we're going to have today is of critical importance. Just as a highlight is to say that there are a number of options available for many of these small island developing states, and each of us are faced with challenges with respect to the funding gap that is bound to confront us as we seek to find new capital investments to make the change. But based on all of the renewable energy options, they're not universally available to us all. So some countries are in a position where, because of the topography, so for example, storage of energy from renewable sources has become an issue. And those countries that are a little bit more mountainous can utilize the facility of sending water up the hill with the energy that you produce from renewable sources during the day, and literally using the differential in height as the storage facility, such that in the evening when there's no sunlight, you can reverse the process of the water and generate water from from the turbines, and in that way you have stored energy. But in many of the instances, those countries who do not have that option, like Antigua, where it is flat, and have to rely on solar power, where there's a significant imprint of solar in our energy mix in Antigua already, we have the challenge of having sufficient battery backup. And because of the whole disruption and the shortage of resources in the supply chain, finding batteries to support the utility level installation of solar plants is not available. And so that presents a challenge to not just Antigua and Barbuda, but several states within the Caribbean. Our neighbor in Jamaica has moved to, in their own energy mix, they have a wind plant in a place called Wigton, where I'm due to make a visit very shortly. Wind, we have an abundance of trade winds across most of our islands in the Caribbean, so it has certain promises, but again, the cost of doing that. And of course, for those of us who have tourism as part of our own economic mix, we would be concerned about the optimal utilization of the land. And in several of the other countries, including St. Lucia, where there's an agricultural belt, the use of available land becomes an issue in terms of the type of footprint that some of these wind farms may seek to utilize to produce that clean energy that we are all in search of. And so the sea, the marine environment, represents a significant opportunity for each of us, because none of us are short of marine environment. And so obviously when my good friend, a former Attorney General as well from Antigua, Mr. Radford Hill, and a very good friend of mine, reached out to me and said, we were looking at, this group was looking at contemplating some research for what we could do with tide and wave energy. Clearly, that has an immediate appeal to my senses. And so I'm expecting that during the course of our deliberation over the next, few sessions late into this afternoon, that we will arrive at a sensible position where we can begin to look at scoping a framework that not only can we complete the research, but where there are pilot projects to be done to see how we can embrace that and get to the front of the line. So I'm delighted to be here. I'm looking forward to a fruitful discussion. And I noticed that we have some young participants in the audience, which is good. And I know that with these young persons, there are some fertile minds that are waiting to be fed. And I'm hoping that I'll be of some use to them as well. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the deliberations for the balance of the day.
Yes, thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for those welcoming remarks. He indeed spoke like somebody who's not just has an interest in the field, but somebody who's very familiar with the issues of renewable energy. Obviously, given his experience in that whole technology sector, as well as his definite interest in how renewable energy is going to benefit the region. Good, so thanks again. Okay, at this time, let me take the opportunity to invite the representative from the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, Ms. Judith Ephraim, who is the director of the Sustainable Energy Unit. The OECS has had a very keen interest in developing the renewable energy sector, and as the regional organization, the sub-regional organization for the Caribbean, the member states are particularly interested in renewable energy given the high cost of energy in all of the respective islands. So the work being done by the OECS is quite pertinent to that discussion. And not only that too, but the fact that they also have a very strong oceans program which they're rolling out. And the oceans program is not just looking at issues dealing with waste, but also looking at how we are going to transition our resources in the ocean sector into more useful uses that would sort of benefit member states and obviously citizens of the region. So I take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Ephraim to give us some opening remarks from the OECS. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable Melford Nicholas, Ms. Monique Boulmer, others at the head table, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The OECS Commission is indeed pleased to be at this gathering here today, which brings together two very important components of development for small island developing states. And so we look forward to receiving the results from this workshop and to hearing from the various attendees the perspectives on this project and indeed on marine energy from your particular stance. For us at the OECS Commission, sustainable energy and ocean governance are very important because we recognize that these are priorities for small island developing states. I think over the past couple of years, we have experienced an energy crisis which came on the heels of COVID, which we were not necessarily prepared. There's been a lot of work done in terms of developing sustainable energy targets for us as a region because we recognize that the importation of fossil fuels for us undermines and stymies our development. We have large spend on imported fossil fuel and we want to ensure that our economies are running. If these represent a drain on our financial resources, then it becomes a burden. On the other hand, we see opportunities in renewable energy. So as Minister would have shared, most of the countries are beginning to move into solar energy, beginning to move into wind energy where it's possible. Even geothermal energy is becoming more of a reality for us. And so whilst we are looking to develop strategies and projects that will show that renewable energy can really work for us in the region, we also need to ensure that we do it in a way that complements other development activities. And this initiative, which looks at the opportunities under the marine space, really seeks to build and consolidate on this whole concept of integration and resilience for small island developing states. We recognize that we may be small in size in terms of land size, but we are really large ocean states. And so where we may be limited in terms of space and other competing development priorities on the land for solar and for wind, our ocean space is significant. And there are opportunities for us now to marry the two development areas and seek innovative solutions that will satisfy our energy needs and ensure that we can move on in terms of advancing the whole concept of the blue economy for us and ensuring that we have innovation that really meets our emerging needs. I'm very pleased as well to see that we have at this workshop both the utility and the government, because we think that it's important in getting all players from the very beginning so that they can share their perspectives, they can better understand, and we can plan together strategically for the good of our nations. I'm also pleased that we have so many young persons. As Minister said, they really are the future, and so we need to develop from early a cadre of persons who can think outside the box, a cadre of persons who are not afraid to navigate new waters and to explore new opportunities that will redound to our benefit. We are also pleased that this is part of the Interreg cooperation, because as you would know, the OECS seeks to support not only our English-speaking member states, but also our French departments. And so this cooperation enables us to work a little closer together, to share a joint goal, and to really explore how we can support each other in addressing the same challenges that we face. We have had some experience with the Interreg, and we see this as an opportunity for us to see how we can build on that relationship, share best practices, and again, cement our cooperation for further achievement of our shared goals. So, just to say that we welcome this opportunity to learn about this new area. We see it as pioneering work, and we wish everyone here some fruitful deliberations. And we look forward to together finding solutions to advancing both sustainable energy and ocean governance for the successful development of our small island developing states in the Caribbean. So I thank you and I wish you successful deliberations.
Good. Thank you very much, Mr. Ephraim, for that open presentation and also for sharing with us a little more in-depth information as to the initiatives that are being undertaken by the Organization of East Caribbean States and how that is likely to benefit the member states going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'd like to introduce again Ms. Monique Bowman. As I said earlier on, she's the director of EKWA Consulting Group that has been putting together this whole project. So she will explain to us the various details about the project, the rest of the team, and how we are going to be going forward and making a presentation to you today that would share information on how this and what we've been able to, the information we've been able to gain from the studies initially and what to look forward to for the rest of the day. Ms. Baldwin?
Hello again. So I guess I told you already that I was happy to be here. So I'm going to introduce the project here and the, what EMR EMR Caribbean means, what's the content, why we're here, what's the goal, the objectives, and where we're heading at. So just some practical information for you. Information that doesn't take a mess, but it's okay. So with the Wi-Fi, so please, bear with us. There will be some typos, and I'm sure the young, attendees here are gonna say, hey, they don't speak so well English, but yeah, bear with us. Sometimes we made some mistakes, so be gentle. Thank you. So the workshop, the agenda, what we're going to be talking about today. So quickly, so you saw that we had the welcoming remarks, and with the Honorable Medford Nicholas, the Minister of Energy, and Mrs. Ephraim Judith, from project manager from the OECS, who honored us of her attendance and participation to this workshop. So this is the second workshop. We were on the road since a few days. We've been organizing a workshop in Guadeloupe on almost the same topics, where we drew, I think, attention and a lot of interest from the European Union, from the region of Guadeloupe, and from, with the attendance of Representative Antigua, Martinique. And so that was successful. I'm sure we're going to have like the same interest, I hope, from you guys and from the attendees today. So one of the main objective today is to present to you our conclusion, preliminary conclusion, and our findings, key findings in several aspects. The technical one, the economic ones, environmental and social and legal, to give you an overview of how we could develop and facilitate the development of, renewable marine energy in the Eastern Caribbean, and how we can organize ourselves within, among the different territories, including the participation of all the people affected, the users and the citizens, to make it viable, sustainable, and provide good quality service, which is, energy is a public service. So anyway, so that will be the first part. So we started a little bit late, but so we have all the project team who would expose, present to you the different aspects. Then we will have, after the coffee break, some discussion, Q&As, and the recommendations that, we preconize to go further. And this afternoon, we'll have 2 roundtables, one on the blue energy mix and how we can regulate the regulated issues of this. And the second roundtable will be on what could be the mechanism or the way we could organize and cooperate together to develop this blue energy. And we will end up, hopefully, with like, a relief at 4:30. No, I'm kidding. You're going to love it. You won't be able, you won't want to stop. So the blue economy, let me try to present you a little bit, what is our project. So our project is a European project. It's funded by the European Regional Development Fund, and which purpose is to promote international regional integration, between the different islands, and also support some priorities in terms of renewable energy. So you see on the left side all the axes, the priority of the European Union in terms of jobs, those projects has created jobs new, in the new blue economy, targeting the youth, also prioritizing innovation, meaning the new technology, new governance system, new cooperation mechanism, addressing the big concerns, and you've been living it in your flesh not a long time ago, the consequences of flooding, hurricanes, and we in the Caribbean, we are at the forefront, on the stage, first row, for natural disaster. And that's something that, is also a component in European program. Public health, of course, which is like something that, energy is providing electricity in hospitals, AC, and so it's very important to take that into account. Of course, renewable energy is the axis 9, which is completely into our objective and priority, and human capital, meaning how we can improve the human resources and the cooperation, the inclusion and participation of people in this big issue, which is addressing climate change, climate crisis, and how we can energy transition. The eligible territories are listed over there. So you see that we have the 2 French islands, from which I'm from the 2, believe it or not. So you have Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, Dominica, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, of course, and British Virgin Islands, and Grenada. And so Barbados was not initially included, but during our workshop in Guadeloupe, the Interreg, meaning the people who are in charge of managing these European funds, said, no, you should include Barbados. So Barbados will be the 12th eligible country for the Interreg program and will be therefore included into our study. So right away, what's the context here? Okay, here you see the share of the portion renewable energy in the electricity mix in the CARICOM countries. And you can see that the blue represent in 2020, what's the share of renewable energy into the mix. The red one is the national objectives of each country by year 2030, meaning 7 years. And the dark blue column is the 27 objective, 2027 objective of the CARICOM. And so you see that for some country, they're far from, it will require a big effort, massive change of paradigm to try to reach these objectives. Now we try, this is factual. We're not, it's completely objective. It's not judgment here. The electricity, and Corinne, tu voulais parler là-dessus? Corinne, you want to mention something on this slide because you don't want to? Okay, it's up to you. So anyway, what is, the price of the kilowatt in the Caribbean is one of the most expensive in the world. And a lot of people don't know that. Population are not aware of it, but this is a fact. And it's been increasing. So the dependence on fossil oil and the dependence of, to be subjected to the volatility of the oil price, it's making the Caribbean population subjected to one of the most expensive electricity in the world. So I think that politically and, every stakeholders, economic actors are suffering from it. When you go to a hotel here, your hotel bill for the room, at least a quarter is on the generator that you're paying, the oil that they use to put the generator on when you have power outage or something like that. So this is really something that need to be addressed. Okay, this is not only an economic issue, it's equity issues, there's a lot of things going on. So based on this, we know that renewable energy is not even questionable. It's something that, should be really be taken the priority in any energy, development policy. So the approach of a study, what we're trying to do here. So basically, we're trying to promote renewable energy. You understood that, and specifically marine, renewable energy. to strengthen, promote international cooperation between the islands, which is something that, we've been talking a lot since a long time, but still we have a lot of effort to do on this. Just to come here, it took us, a long time. It's very expensive. I couldn't go to Antigua. The Honorable Minister Melford Nicholas here took a special flight to come here because there is no commercial line, okay? Which is like, between Guadeloupe and Antigua is 20 minutes. So if you try to book a ticket to go there, it's 7 hours. Okay, so what are we talking about here? Okay, that's a subject too. And not only that, for the youth too. I mean, you cannot travel, it's too expensive. Okay, so you can go to London, you can go to New York, but you cannot go next door. Okay, so that's something that this is a prerequisite too. I mean, if we want to do something, we should have some mobility, some flexibility, and be cheaper. Okay, where is JetBlue? Where is, Railing, or whatever, those charter flights, a company that could do this. So reduce the dependence on fossil oil. You understood that there was something that we also promoting and trying to reach. Controlling the cost of electricity. So therefore, it's like a consequence correlation on the reduction of the dependence on the energy. Try to federate, to unite ourselves around promising projects. Okay, so meaning concrete things, not like general thinking, but trying to find pilot project where everybody could adhere to, which is since our approach is definitely inclusive. And of course, like trying to boost the economic development of the blue economy. So what we're trying to do, so we are here to, our mission, the ultimate result of our study is to establish a pre-feasibility study. So pre-feasibility study is not what's feasible. It's not a specific project. It's an overview of what can be done, can be adjusted if it's not there, to be able to implement, develop projects that are sustainable in a long time, that provide quality service, and that get the adhesion of all the people affected, including the user, the fishermen, the industrial actors, and so on and so forth. So therefore, we try to identify pilot project which is regional, meaning if we develop a project here in St. Lucia, that will be the other islands will be involved too. Okay, we don't, we near each other, so it's not like in our little, ancillary, Mrs. Ephraim talked eloquently about the fact that we small territories, but we have like big maritime space. That's why we should use it, and there's a rich potential for that. So let's try to see on the regional project how we can do that. Of course, you have legal aspects on that. So what are the options? Are we going to structure, financially and contractually, how we can structure what are the different options, who's going to do what, who's going to bear which responsibilities in terms of, and also in terms of risk for the project. So we, in our study, this is what we're trying to do. Develop a roadmap, an action plan to implement these projects. Develop also training. And I think that, here are our young attendees, almost feminine, by the way. I don't see young little boys. Will be sensitive to the fact that we're trying also to develop curriculum. And Mr. Yotson over there, David, who is a professor at the University of the West Indies in Barbados, will participate to the roundtable, and we can talk about the way we can develop regional cooperation for training. Also, new mechanism of governance, participatory, how we can really try to include everybody who is affected, who is interested, to define the strategy of this new economy. And also, you know, even if I said already, like trying to develop ways we can cooperate with each other. What will be the instance, the way, you know, it could be flexible, but how we can coordinate and cooperate between the different islands. And of course, organizing workshops. You saw that this is what we're doing right now. We did one in Guadeloupe. We do one today, and in last quarter of 2023, we're trying to, we will do one in Brussels. So this is actually what I've been saying. So in terms of the sharing of resource and capacity and the cooperation between the island with the different topics and fields that where, you know, we could cooperate. And now we're trying to, you know, I mean, not really trying, I'm presenting the team and where we're from. So Hin and Hill, Mr. Radford Hill, who doesn't hear me right now, but who is the partner of the project, representing Antigua and Barbuda. Equa Consulting here, myself, Monique Bolman, in Guadeloupe, and David Simmons, that you saw, who made the introduction to this workshop from St. Lucia. You notice too that this is a team where we are more women than men. So in terms of parity, I think that, you know, we fill all the boxes, and, you know, I'm very proud of that actually, and trying to use young, motivated, dedicated, skilled, very skilled professional people. In a team, if we accumulate the experience of the team, you have, you know, in front of you 200 years of experience, covering all the world. We've been everywhere. We covered all the continents in the world. And I think that the presentation you're going to have show the expertise and the dedication and motivation of the team members. Thank you. Now I leave the presentation of the technical aspects of our study, which will be carried out by by Bruno Lemort, sorry, and Céline Cazes from Céline Caz, sorry.
Thank you, Monique. Good morning to everyone. I'm Bruno Lemort. I'm the Chief Technical Officer at IS, Energy Marine Development. And I will present you the technical pre-feasibility study together with Céline Caz, who is the director at IS, Energy Marine Development. First, I would like to show you this typical layout of a marine renewable energy system, so that we can understand what we are talking about in the following slides. If we go from the left to the right, so first we have what we call the energy converter device, so WEC or TEC, meaning wave energy converter or tidal energy converter. That's the two types of energy that we have looked into for this study. So typically the device is installed offshore at a limited distance from the shore. We have been looking for a typical distance of approximately 5 kilometers, and we will explain a bit later why we have chosen that. We have to install these devices at sea, so either is a floating device with anchoring, or some of the device can also be installed laying on the seabed. So that's also two different things that we have explored in the study. This device is the device that will convert the mechanical energy from the waves or from the tidal current into electricity. And we have to install as well a subsea export cable to bring this electricity that has been produced to the shore. And this cable is connected to the onshore substation that we have to build on the coast, and there is another cable, underground cable, which will bring the electricity to the existing grid. So for all this geographical installation, we have looked in the study for the natural resource. The first one, the potential. Do we have enough energy in the wave and the tidal currents to produce electricity? The possibilities for building an onshore landing substation. There are some places where obviously it's not possible to build a new construction. We have looked at the environmental zoning, the existing uses like fishing, tourism, leisure, and the geophysical condition, the seabed morphology, the bathymetry, which means the water depth, and also the electricity, because all this new energy and capacity needs to be fitted together with the consumption at the dedicated place. I will show you some examples of the technologies. So on the left you have the tidal energy converters technologies, which mainly are composed of the turbines, which are quite similar to the wind turbines, but under the sea. But there are other technologies that are presented here. For example, the kite technology that will describe a movement and convert electricity. And on the right side, you have the wave energy converters technologies, which are very various and thank you, Thomas. So very various type of technology. We have identified more than 150 different technology developers in the world. Each one have his own technology. There are some main families, but you have an overview here of what can be done. So the first step was to assess the natural resource potential. Do we have enough energy in the waves or in the current to produce electricity with the technologies? So we have used numerical modeling together with our partners Météolien, based in France. On the left side, you can see the result. So on the global study area of the wave energy assessment. So the dark red is where you have the most energy coming in from the waves of the Atlantic Sea. And on the right side, you have the global map for the tidal currents. So you can see that the tidal is more like some spots, very localized, and the wave is more homogeneous on the east side of the Caribbean arch. From this global wave, we have been focusing on all the islands of the study area to produce these dedicated maps where you can have a more detailed views or where are the spots where we have the more interesting potential. And from all this information, we have sum up, assess based on criteria that we know, because from our discussion with the technology developers, we know what's the minimum value for energy density from the waves and water speed from the current that are required to produce electricity. So we have done this assessment, and from that we have defined the spots where we will look further in details what is possible to do for future projects.
Thank you, Bruno. Before going on, I just want to precise that we won't show you all the details of the results, of course, because we studied 11 islands, so we have just put some pictures or example of figures, but don't worry if you can't read everything. It's just to give you an idea of the methodology we followed. So after having, no, I won't. After having defined interest zones regarding resources, we look for potential onshore landing areas. It means we'd like to find where we can install onshore substation to collect the electricity produced from the sea. So it was quite simple. We work with satellite view, and we looked for urbanized areas where that might have consumptions, pole of consumptions, where also the environment is not too wide, and so we define different areas. Yes, also our aim is to be at 5 kilometers maximum from the zone of interest in the sea. Not too far, because as we don't want to build huge installation, it would be economically, if we are too far in the sea, we won't find a good balance. So we establish a rule of 5 kilometer max from the coast. So we evaluate the zone we defined as it is, and we go on. Then we explore the thematic of environment and usages. First of all, on a macro approach, for each island, we collected data, bibliographic data, to identify the designated areas, what it exists today, which are the regulatory zones. And so for each island, we made maps dedicated for each island. It was difficult to collect all the data. We know we haven't an exhaustive view of all the things, but we think we have a quite global view of what exists in each island. We did the same for other thematic like fishing, tourism, maritime traffic, all the main usages we can have in the sea, because it's important that our future projects cohabit with or coexist. Sorry, with what already with the people who live here. We don't want to add another constraints, but to add something very useful for everybody who need electricity. So we had different maps for each island again, and we made a summary at this stage, a summary of what we encountered. Sorry for my English. Then we make some focuses on the zone of interest, where we define there could be resources, good resources to install marine plants. So again, we just have a sum up of all the main information. And again, on these areas, we analyze different concerns as it is described here. For example, we evaluate on each areas different thematic. As you can see, green, we estimate it's weak concern or for the area. In orange, it's moderate, and in red, it's hard concern. So it's a kind of points of vigilance we will have to have when we go forward on the projects. And the common, of course, there are many things to check, but the common main points, main concerns we have around the Caribbean islands will be through marine mammals, herbarium and mangroves for the land onshore connection. And also we will have, of course, a great concerns on sargassum. Unfortunately, we have to deal with that. And we have also to integrate that not only for the design of the installation and their maintenance and lifespan, but also, maybe we can have a double effect if we can treat this sargassum. So many things to have in mind to choose the best places for the future projects.
Thank you, Céline. So we have looked previously in the environmental aspects, so that the project of marine renewable energy will comply with the protection of the environment. We have looked to the uses, so that we can also coexist with the existing uses and the human activities. Now we'll focus more on where we can install specifically, technically, the wave energy converters or tidal energy converters. So we have to look at the bathymetry, which is the water depth, because this is something that will give you indication on what type of technologies you can use. So we have also collected data and create some maps on every island regarding the bathymetry, which you can see here. And like for the other criteria, we did a summary and an assessment on all the potential sites to see if the water depth was compliant with the installation of a device. We have been also looking on the seabed conditions, which is not, let's say, not criteria for choice of a site, but which gives indication of the type of technology that you will need to deploy for installation and also for the subsea cable. So as for the other, we have done a summary according to the data that we have collected. And finally, we also have gathered data from the electricity consumption on each island and tried to identify also for each island who are the actors in the electricity sector, so the producer, the utilities and the regulators. These people that we have identified, these entities, will need to work with for future projects on each island. The next criteria that we have been looking for is harbors and logistics, because this kind of projects, marine renewable energy projects, require some dedicated facilities. And I will leave the floor to Thomas, which will present us his work. Okay. Yep.
Yes, are there any commercial installations for wave or tidal energy utilities that you know of that you can refer to at the moment, and what scale, what type of energy output are they yielding?
Yeah. So there are, so as I mentioned, there are many companies and technology developers working in this field for many years, passing the steps of the technology development from research and development, test and trials. So for, let's say, 5 years, we see the first commercial installation in the water, coming in the water, mainly in Europe, also in the United States a bit. So they have some, for both wave and tidal energy, we can see some first arrays, commercial arrays, supplying electricity to the grid.
And how would those costs compare on a megawatt basis, let's say with solar? Because we already have an indicative cost of a megawatt of solar. How do they compare? If you can? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going ahead of myself.
Yes.
Enthusiastic.
That's a very good question and very frequently asked question for sure, but we will present this a bit later in the,
my apologies.
in the slides. Yeah. Thomas?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bruno. My name is Thomas Dupera, and I'm the founder and co-founder and president of Maritime, working in maritime economics and in the blue economy. And in this particular project, we dealt with harbor and logistics issues because, as was mentioned earlier, first thing is to know where we could put the devices, but then how do you bring them to the place? How do you install them? How do you manufacture them? I mean, you manufacture them outside, but then you probably have to assemble them somewhere before you put them into the water. So as was said before, we looked at 12 possible sites, at least part of the Interreg projects, ranging for about 1,100 kilometers from north to south, and each island or each archipelago is distant from the next to some 30 to 150 kilometers apart. So the question is immediately, how can these territories, how can these islands work together? And we'll speak about cooperation later in the day, but that's also an issue when we talk about logistics, because we sure have the international logistics and that's the highest probability that if the devices are not built on the islands, but they have to bring them from abroad, and then we have the regional logistics as well. As will be discussed when we talk about institutional and legal frameworks, of course, but you know that more than I do, have different status, of course, some independent states, some European regions, and some and one bridge overseas territory in our panel of possible islands. When we talk about harbor and maritime issues, and we first have to look at harbors. I mean, where are they located compared to the possible area for implanting these devices, being wave or tidal energy. So where the harbor is located is, of course, paramount. Then we have to look at the infrastructures and the equipment and services of this harbor. What are the lifting possibilities? Again, and we'll, of course, have to then look at the exact device or devices which have not been chosen yet, but depending on the volume, on the weight of the devices, then some harbors might be more suitable than others. We look at the harbor authorities, harbor management in each place, and very importantly, we look at safety and security. Of course, these are expensive devices. You want to have a place where you can work safely, and of course, most harbors having international connections comply with the ISPS codes, but that's definitely an issue when it will come to start the pilot projects. So harbors and maritime-related issues. Then we also have to look at on-land related issues close to the harbor. I mean, be it immediately in the harbor on a quayside or not too far away, where we could both, handle the devices, store some equipment, some of the devices, and assemble them before you put them back into the water. As Bruno or Celine or both, I think, were mentioning, it's important to look, of course, at the existing uses in the water. I mean, the thing is, marine renewable energy or ocean renewable energy are kind of the last users to come to these places. And so where can you find a spot that is not competing with other users? Of course, fishing. In some places, you can actually fish close to the devices, so that's something that definitely will have to be looked into. And other maritime uses being recreational boating, of course, regular shipping lines between islands or from overseas. And the environmental issues have been presented before, so of course we have to look at marine protected areas and other environmental protected areas. So how did we do it? Well, it was both on desktop research and also some targeted interviews with harbors and the different islands. So we could have sort of an ID card of each harbor that we contemplated or possibly contemplated. And again, these are some of the items that I discussed with you, being of course, the maximum vessel size that can come to the harbor. As I mentioned, also video surveillance, port and police regulation. This is quite important as well, and some more technical aspects. Roll ramps or roll on and run off. Can you bring? Do you need a crane, or can you just roll from this harbor? And I would also mention that barging services is quite important as well, because once you bring these devices, which can be pretty heavy, then you have to put them on the water, on the spot where you want them to produce electricity, and so you need to have some barging equipment, services, and experience to safely implement these machines. So for each harbor, we had this ID card. We also looked, yes, at marine protection-related issues, and as the Honourable Minister said, you have small islands, but you have big exclusive economic zones. So yes, depending, of course, on the different island, different states, you have a relatively large playground. Although, as was mentioned earlier, we don't want these devices to be too far away from the coast for economic reasons, of course. We looked, at maritime activity, and the good thing is that the maritime activity, as you know, is basically more active on the lee shore than it is on the windward. So, and the good thing is that we like to have some wind and some wave and some tides. So it should be. We should be able to find some pilot sites where the potential, the energy potential is big, but then the maritime activity is not so strong and not so active. All right, so for each island, for each territory, we drew a map of the possible location of the harbors, of the shipping lines, and then we zoom in onto the facilities, both with a map and a satellite picture because it can help us figure out where we could possibly welcome and then assemble these devices before we put them back into the water. So with all these aspects, we have a very, well, I don't know if it's comprehensive, but it's a kind of a large summary with all the different aspects being lifting equipment, towing and barging, and mentioned earlier, ship services, shore services, availability of space on the dock or near the dock, the regional and international liaison, the safety issues, and then, of course, the last line, current marine renewable energy projects. Well, so far, none have been implemented, though that's why the last line is all, let's say, work in progress. But we hope that with this Interreg project, we can switch from red to maybe orange, and in the future, green dots for these marine renewable energy projects. Thank you very much, and if you have any question on the logistics and harbor, I can answer them, and then I'll leave the floor to Celine for the multi-criteria. So we take everything, and then what do we do with it?
Thank you, Thomas. So finally, at this stage of our works, after having compiled all the analyses, all the data, all the conclusions for which thematic you've seen, we identified 4 potential pilot projects we proposed today. And we think that if there is a common interest, of course, we have just a marine worker, and we propose you to go forward together, and if local people from each island find an interest and a common way, we think that these are the best sites to begin, because we have to begin, we have to have the first step and to show that we can do something with marine energy. So from the north to the south, we identified in Antigua something around the Crabs Peninsula. In Guadeloupe, far from the commune of Petit Canal, in the east coast of Guadeloupe. The same in Martinique, close to La Trinité. For these pilot projects, we are always 5 kilometers max from the coast. This is the aim, I remember that. And finally, in St. Lucia, we think that we could do something close to Dennery. And for these 4 pilot sites, it would be through wave energy. So just pre-feasibility studies, long way to, and a lot to do again, but with people of islands, not alone. Thank you. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so for your,
Because we in the streaming here, so by the way, we I guess you give us the authorization of recording this conference, but that's why we have to use the microphone, and you will have a link afterwards, to review and a recording of this seminar.
okay, so my name is Daricia and I'm from St. Lucia. So based on what you showed that in St. Lucia you're looking at Dennery, right? And that's in the fishing port area. Okay, so I have a question. So Dennery is known for flooding and whatnot. And so when you showed the diagram, you had anchoring and the lines, and then you had I don't remember the name, but you had a machine like close to shore or whatnot. It was like, I forget the design, but then the stations before it goes to the grid, that station. So
you talked about the grid connection? No.
the substation, I think it was.
This part?
No, no.
No, sorry.
Well,
Okay.
there. Right. So the onshore substation. So would if there's a huge flood or whatnot, that would it be affected? Because you have to think of maintenance and then all of that as well. So I'm asking, like, would the flooding, because it's a flood zone, prone to flooding. So I'm asking, would it be a problem or not?
Thank you for the question. So we have, as mentioned previously, it's a pre-feasibility study. So there are some aspects that we have not been looking further in details at this stage. And we also need to have a local consultation and discussion. So this kind of knowledge of the territory that people have is very useful as a feedback for us. So at the moment, we have not been looking at the specific location for the onshore. And when we will look at that, if a project goes further in Dennery, of course, we will have to take this flooding topic into account. At the moment, we have identified Dennery because the resource is good for the wave on the shore. Bathymetry is compliant with installation as well of devices. The port, the fishing port, is already an urban zone. There are constructions, so we think that it's quite more easy to install new construction over there. And there are some needs for electricity. The fishermen, they have these ice machines and these kind of things that we know that they have needs for electricity over there. But of course, the study is not completed, so there are many other topics that we will have to look further.
Thank you very much for some very interesting issues that you have shared. I wish my colleagues from Ocean Governance were actually here because I have a whole list of questions, not to scare you out, but just to follow on what the young lady was speaking of. Number one, I wanted to know, I noticed that Anguilla was not included, although the name was there initially. So I'm not sure. And secondly, to follow up on what she was speaking, in terms of hurricanes and insurance, I know you have to do the feasibility studies, but just some preliminary comments if you could share with us, because I'm sure most of us in the room are trying to understand, you know, how this technology would respond to those types of things. So hurricanes, especially on the Atlantic side, and in terms of the technology, what measures have already been put in place for insurance?
Okay, so I will talk about the technical, and the insurance is addressed a bit later in the presentation. For the technical aspects, the device that we put in the water, the anchoring and so on, they are designed according to meteorological statistics for the worst case in the last 100 years. That's how are the design, the wave energy converters and the anchoring, because it's also a question of safety and security. So these hurricanes, they are taking into account in the design as the worst case scenario. So sometimes we oversize things, but it's for the safety issues. And the insurance, Monique will address the question in the further slides.
Simon Delage from the OECS. Also, we were talking about hurricanes, and another risk that you mentioned and was listed as strong risk, I think, was sargassum. And I know that all the sites, they are on the Atlantic coast, which is the coast that is the most impacted by sargassum. So I would like you to tell us a bit more about the risk that are posed by sargassum, and what is the solution to that risk. Thank you. When I'm saying the risk, not the risk to sargassum, I know that you're not going to solve the sargassum problem. I'm talking about the impact on the station. Thank you.
So basically, the topic that it's not very explored yet in the research works. We are looking for some research works, but do not have found so many answers to those questions. What we'll have to look into. We know that sargassum are corrosive, but in the same time, the devices that we are talking about, they are designed to live for 25 years in the seawater, so they are already designed for the corrosion. The thing that could have an impact is if we have an accumulation of sargassum on the device themselves, we don't know how they will continue to operate. So one of the things we have in mind is to explore to add another function to the marine renewable energy. It will be a kind of protection or collection of sargassum before they arrive to the device. We know that they have some things putting in place at the moment as experimental net for collection. In Martinique, for example, they have started that. We have to look at this more in detail. But yeah, there is something very specific to the Caribbean area, and there have not been very detailed research works at the moment. It will also depend on the type of technology. Some technology are fully under marine, some other are floating, so yeah, we have to look at that.
Yeah, question here?
I'm just curious as to, oh, apologies. My name is Abigail Charles, and I work with the planning department at the utility St. Lucia Electricity Services. Just curious as to why all of the prototypes, the pilots are wave and not tidal. I don't think I heard that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have looked at both resources. It's the result of all the mixed criteria that when we put all together, there are some specific sites in the Caribbean where the current is sufficient to think for tidal energy projects. But with all the other criteria, especially the bathymetry, because the tidal energy converter, most of the time they are installed at the bottom of the seabed, and they need a certain water depth above them. And at the moment, we have not identified the most favorable. What we have presented is the 4 most favorable sites that we have found. And compared with all these criteria, especially bathymetry and the current speed, we have not, the tide was not issued as one of the 4 most favorable. In generally the current and the tide are very specific locations because it depends on many factors like the seabed morphology. And so you find very specific sites. And the wave energy is much more homogeneous when it comes for the East Coast. On all the islands, you have a larger choice of sites to use wave energy.
And it's also depending of the maturity of the technology we know today. So as Bruno explained, it's a mix of all these criteria. Maybe in 5 or 10 years it would be different, but we are now.
So if we are okay with the questions, no, still one there.
I just have a quick question with regard to. I'm sorry. Good morning. My name is Linda Lebrun. I'm the current lab supervisor at Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. So I'm here of the younger generation, I should say. Thank you. And so my question was, I know this is a pre-feasibility study where you chose 4 islands that probably had the maybe best criteria at the moment. And so moving forward, how do you incorporate the other islands that, you know, I think you mentioned, because I don't know how many there were, 10 or more, and then we kind of had to tease out just 4. So how do we move forward based on that, you know, whatever you, data you attain initially? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Corinne Dubois. Ooh, I have a written in my ear. And I am the CEO of East Energy Marine Development. So the program, as we see it, is as a whole. Okay, so all the islands, they have some strength, and we need to use the good strength in the good island. Some islands have the wave resource, some other tidal resource, and some other have a good seaport. Some other have very huge universities. Some other have workers that can go everywhere and know very good the work of the mechanics and marine electricity, for example. We need all this. And the idea of this program is to use the skills where they are, to put them where the resource is, and to make run the economy, not only the electricity. So the other island, maybe they will be after, but anyway they will participate. Okay?
Maybe if I can add also, the other islands can participate in the cooperation. We'll talk about cooperation this afternoon.
Thank you very much. I'm David Yawson from UWI, the University of the West Indies Caribbean campus. And I have very simple questions that are not meant to derail the process, but to facilitate the process. I think we're talking about potential cooperation and at the regional level. And I believe that we need to identify the numbers and the pillars that can be integrated into the process right from the outset to support this process. Not sure if at this stage we are able to estimate the potential maximum energy that can be generated, whether per site or per country. At this stage, are we thinking of ways in which the 4 different sites that have been identified, whether there is room for pooled or sharing of whatever energy that is generated, or it will be per country basis? And how do you envision the scope for cooperation? And in this case, in terms of energy sharing or distribution going forward, so that all of us, wherever we need to speak about this, we have something at our fingertips, to talk about, to promote this idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Somebody wants to answer this question?
Talking about the electricity production, at the moment we have not put a defined technology in front of the resource that we have assessed. So we know that there are potential for energy on the 4 pilot sites and on others maybe later, but we have not assessed because we have not doing the size. It will all depend on also the capacity of the electricity grid. How much can we inject on the grid, and we want to fit the production with the local needs. So we have not figures at the moment of how much energy this kind of projects will produce. It will all depend on the further discussion.
And also on the sargassum, I am glad to tell you that at SEMIS, we do sargassum forecasting. And potentially that could be helpful. We're looking for resources to scale this up for the entire Caribbean arch. So we will be happy to cooperate on this. So we create dashboards, and at any time, persons know how much sargassum coming in at any point in time. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought you were turning all the sargassum into rum in Barbados. There's a project on rum and sargassum. I thought that's what you were doing.
That would be interesting.
Yes. No, I just wanted to add on the regional issue. Well, there's a roundtable later this afternoon where we're going to be talking on opportunities for regional cooperation in the renewable energy sector. And we'll also have on that panel Dr. David Gardner from CICRI. He's here in St. Lucia, so he'll be joining us this afternoon to talk about those opportunities for regional cooperation, because it was never our idea to pursue this just as from an individual country standpoint, but recognizing that the opportunities for regional cooperation. And when we were doing our initial rounds of consultation, we spoke with folks at the OECS, and that's why I'm the representative here today. And likewise, we'll also be talking with CICRI about opportunities for regional cooperation. But these are opportunities, I think, that one would have to pursue, and these entities I've mentioned, they've already doing work in the area, so we don't envisage doing anything new to, reinvent the wheel as far as that is concerned, but to work with those existing institutions. Thanks.
Yeah, next time when you talk, if you want to be filmed, you have to be upfront, okay? I suggest that either we take a break because we're late, or we do the legal thing now, so you can digest it, or you want to take a deep breath, and take a break, and then we tackle the legal issues. It's up to you. So we make the break now? Okay. So coffee break. Thank you very much. See you in 10 minutes.